It had taken Louisa a good 24 hours to forgive him. With not a single client since February, Sandro needed all the contacts he could get. He could live without managing to antagonize the rich and well-connected. The morning after, Louisa hadn't been surprised, and she told him as much. "I don't know why I bother," she said. "Why couldn't you have just been civil? If you accept someone's hospitality," and he'd grunted at that, because they both knew he'd like to have been given the opportunity not to accept any such thing, "you should be gracious about it. Just because they're wealthy doesn't make them bad people." And before he had had a chance to wonder at her vehemence, she'd gone to work without her coffee. So the wealthy residents of the Palazzo San Giorgio had settled discreetly into their first few weeks of cocooned luxury. John Carlson had written his puff piece for a foreign newspaper. Sandro knew that because Louisa had brought it home from work. Scanning the article, he found it only anodyne, so he assumed the hunt must have gone elsewhere. Once or twice Sandro did think of Giancarlo Vito, too, with his charming smile and his cybercrime expertise, and he wondered. But the last thing Sandro needed was a reminder that he was down to his own last coffee spoonful of testosterone, and more ignorant of hard drives than the average 8-year-old, so he pushed the thought away. And by the time they heard from Alessandra Cornell again, it was halfway through a scorching May, and the evening had turned into the fading memory of one more social occasion on which Sandro had shown his wife up and sabotaged his own professional chances. So there was something shamefaced as well as gleeful about the way Louisa marched into the kitchen, dropped her handbag on the table, and announced, more than a month after what they both viewed as a debacle, "Guess who dropped by the shop this evening, asking for you?" Sandro knew better than to say anything. He smiled warily. "Alessandra Cornell." She sat down, and Sandro could see the glow of the day's heat in her cheeks. "The woman from the Palazzo San Giorgio." "The attaché," said Sandro. "Asking for me? I have an office, don't I?" Louisa gave him a sidelong look. "And you were there all day, were you?" Sandro shifted uneasily, then stood up to go and stir the sauce he was making, tuna and olives. He'd never been known to even reheat a pizza, but after a month of idleness at the office, of watching Louisa coming home from work, the sole breadwinner, and straight away putting on her apron, he'd decided that perhaps he'd better get his act together. Louisa had needed to bite her tongue a couple of times when he'd got it wrong, but she had surrendered the ground once or twice a week. He switched off the gas and went back to the table. "I might have nipped out for a coffee. To the market." He gave in. "She came to the office?" Louisa smiled. She was good at regaining the high ground. She shook her head. "Phoned. I said you'd have been out on a job and would have the mobile off." So Alessandra Cornell had been looking for him. He thought of her expensive vanilla-pale hair and her condescension, and had to admit to being gratified. "You're going to see her at 10 tomorrow morning," said Louisa, which wiped the smile off his face.